Good evening. I see a few comments there already. Ginger, hi. Christiana, you didn't get up at 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning. I can't believe it. Hi, Christiana. JVCB, good evening. 4:30 in the morning. That's great. Right at the end of our hummingbird stream about an hour ago, um, Stag, Stagg, said hello and chatted for a little while, and I kind of thought he was from Turkey. And anyway, he mentioned he was just taking a break from studying. So I said to him, "You must study all night," and he said, "Yeah, it's about." I think he said it was 3:30 or 4:30 in the morning, something like that. He was studying. Today he's giving a presentation for his master's degree in some university in Istanbul. It was 3:30, Ginger, thanks. Well, we have lots of June bugs. I haven't really looked closely to see what else is there besides June bugs, so you'll be discovering with me. It's a beautiful night. I think it has clouded over, perhaps, in the last half hour or so, but it's mild. It's 18 degrees Celsius, which is about mid 60s, something like that, and very little wind, so it's a good night. It was a pretty warm day, into the low 20s, so around 70. Yeah, 20 is around 70 Fahrenheit. I think it might have been like 22. So tomorrow it's going to be even warmer. So let's take a look, see what we have here besides June bugs. I see an old friend right here, a powdered bigwing that we've seen, I think, every night that we stream. This is our fourth night of streaming. And who's this down here? I think this is a sweet fern geometer. We saw one last night, or a couple last night, that weren't as well marked as this one. This one's has some very dark lines on it, but it's got other features that suggest it's a sweet fern geometer. In particular, no, I was going to point out a field mark. It's flying now. Let's see, there's a ground beetle of some kind. Seems to have orange legs. This may be one that has green iridescence on top. We just can't see it because we're not getting the right angle or enough light. There's a leafhopper walking along there. And we have a caddisfly here. It's a different species than the one we saw last night. actually caddis, C-A-D-D, D like Delta, caddis fly, and usually spelled all one word. And here is beautiful little micro moth. Just get this to focus. I think that's our gray leaf roller. This is another powdered big wing. So our sweet fern geometer has moved up here now. Nicer light for some reason. I was going to say, look for those little tiny round dots outlined in black. They're white dots outlined in black, just in from the leading edge of the wings on either side. That's a really good field mark for sweet fern geometer. A lot of things flying around. I think the June bugs maybe have things stirred up a bit. Just wait. This is what is this called? This one's mostly white, but it's got a bit of brown on the underside of the wing, on the leading edge, on the underside of the wing. It's something spring moth. What's it called? Gray spring moth? White spring moth? Not sure. I think it's called white spring moth or early spring moth. It's something spring moth anyway. Kind of a small to medium moth that's all white. Here it is. But it has some brown, just a brownish wash on the underside of the wings along the leading edge. The only field mark it has really, but it's a distinctive field mark. There's no other species that has that. Here's a rove beetle again. Those beetles that only have the elytra partially covering the wings. So just the front half of the body that's rusty colored. Those are the hard elytra that protect the wings. And the rear half that's darker, those are actually the bare wings folded up. Oh, here's a cute little beetle. Look at if you can see it, try to look at the snout on this thing. There's a long proboscis like an elephant almost. You see the antennae are actually attached to the end of the snout. This group of beetles generally are called weevils, and there are many species. This one being very small and having some nice markings on the elytra, especially out near the end. You can see it's got some kind of orangish colored spots there. It'll be easy to identify. There's a slightly better view from above. It's a small weevil, which is a type of beetle, and it's in the genus Curculio, Curcullio, Curculio. But there are a lot of species in that genus. They're all really small, like this. Here's a moth we haven't seen before, but I'm not going to be able to remember the name, but it's a common moth, and that's a pretty good view of it. So with a screen grab, I can get a name for you. Here's that early spring moth with his wings open, seen from above. That's the one that has a brownish wash on the underside of the wings near the leading edge. There's another one. Sorry, everything's flying tonight. June bug on top, but some kind of an aquatic beetle below. The one in the very center of that frame right now. The June bug just knocked off. This may be the same bug over here, or similar species. Anyway, it's an aquatic beetle. That's a aquatic beetles are a separate family of beetles, and many species again. And they spend a good part of their life in the water, but most of them are able to fly at some point. This looks like it's probably some kind of a small wasp. I can't really see much in the way of field marks. There's our little weevil again. These weevils, some of them there's some very large species that are like 25, 30 millimeters long, over an inch long. And those larger ones are called bill bugs. Many species again, but you often see them on sand dunes. They like sandy habitats. Hey, is Dan there? Hi, Dan. Welcome to the bug watch. Here's our flame-shouldered dart that we've seen every night so far that we've streamed. It can be much more rusty colored than this. Oh, June bug displaced it again. Here's our aquatic beetle of some kind. Here's our sweet fern geometer. Again, same one, probably same individual. Hey, Dan, number 2. Now I'm confused. Are both Dans here at the same time? That would be unusual. Of some kind. It's not the species we saw a few minutes ago. It's a different one with mostly dark wings and not really any markings. Caddisfly expert would recognize it probably by the shape of the wings. Ginger says, yep, both Dans. Wow, it's amazing. Dance to the nth degree tonight. Here's here's a new moth that we haven't seen on the stream before, but I don't think I'm going to be able to pull up a name for you. But it looks pretty distinctive, and it looks like something I've seen. I've been photographing moths at this wall pretty much every night from April till November since 2015. So it's pretty unusual to see a new species, although I have seen a couple of new ones this year, and I've seen over 1,070 species in the yard. So I've seen most of these things before. I just can't remember their names, especially early in the season like that, like this. Even this thing here is a type of moth. This one's in the genus Coleophora, and there are dozens of species, and there are lots and lots and lots of undescribed species in that genus Coleophora. The big group of moths that aren't very well known. Here's an Aclaris, some species of Aclaris moth. Aclaris, A-C-L-E-R-I-S. 35 species in New Brunswick, and some of them are really hard to tell apart. I don't recognize this one. I mean, I recognize it as something I've seen many times, but I can't pull up the name. All right, we'll move over to the other side of that. Well, here's something new, I think. Yeah, this is a pug moth of some kind, P-U-G. It's just a name for a group of moths that have basically the same shape, long narrow wings, and they hold their wings straight out when they are perched. A flame-shouldered dart in the foreground, and in the back is a ground beetle. This one has, I don't know if you can see it, it's got beautiful purple color on the pronotum, which is in front of the wings. Between the wings and the head, that area sometimes called the thorax, but on beetles it's usually called the pronotum. But this one has some sort of a copper color on the pronotum. If I could just get the camera to focus. I think there's green iridescence on the elytra, which are actually the covering over top of the wings, and you can see the legs are quite orange. Nice look at that flame-shouldered dart there too. Well, I'm stumped by this one. I'm not sure what this is. The genus is Apotamus. It's a micromoth. Apotamus, A-P-O-T-O-M-I-S. Apotamus. And this species is albeola, is the species name. And I don't think it has a common name, even though it's a very common moth here in New Brunswick anyway. I think we might be sort of at the center of its geographic distribution. It's a Apodamus. You got that right, Ginger? And the species is albeola. A-L-B as in Bravo. E-O-L-A. Albeola. That's it. It's so nice to have a secretary or somebody taking notes. Very kind of you to do this, Ginger. Here's a big click beetle of some kind. It's another big group of beetles. This one has, I think the antenna and maybe part of the legs are kind of orangish, maybe brownish. I'm using my iPad as a camera tonight, and without the ability to adjust exposure, you're at the mercy of the sensor of the camera. And the sensor of the built-in camera sees this big white wall. You know, I'm on a white cotton sheet, and it doesn't like things that are big and white. It wants to make everything sort of neutral gray. So it makes the white darker, and it ends up making the insects darker as well. So there's a click beetle on the right with two June bugs, which are, of course, are beetles as well. Hi, Alyssa. Great to see you. Oh, here's a rosy maple moth. Look at this beauty here. We were just talking about these tonight, Alyssa and Ginger. These, the caterpillars of these moths feed on several species of maple, but they also feed on other hardwoods as well. That's so funny. We were saying how we'd like to see one tonight. There's a really nice fresh one. And they have the nice furry thorax and body as well. You can see the end of the body sticking out between the wings there. Chloe, JB had said that too. So we were also talking tonight about another moth that has exactly the same colors except they're reversed. And that moth is called the primrose moth. And it spends the daytime sleeping inside evening primrose flowers. Evening primrose flowers close during the day and provides a good safe home for evening primrose, or for primrose moths. And they're so large, the moths, that their rear ends stick out of the flowers. But because the colors are reversed on that species, the part that sticks out is yellow, which is the same color as the evening primrose flowers. So they go unnoticed. But if you go looking for them, they're actually quite easy to find. Most areas if you have a lot of evening primrose, it's pretty easy to find primrose moths when they're flying, which is later in the summer. They're not out yet. I think that's a gray leaf roller again, like we saw earlier. There's some kind of a crane fly. Beautiful pattern on the wings. Here's a lady beetle. I think this is an Asian lady beetle, one of a few introduced species we have in North America. This one is the commonest of the introduced species. I used to know how wide the bands were in the material, in the cotton, so you'd have a good reference point knowing the size of the insects you're looking at. But I've forgotten it, of course. I also, somewhere I've written down the weave size so that I know how many individual threads there are in a centimeter. I think it's 12 or 13 threads per centimeter. I think Alyssa just said true ladybugs have all black heads. Well, most people call these ladybugs, but they're really beetles. It's kind of like June bugs. June bugs really are beetles, and they're in the family that's often called May beetles. And lady beetles, one of the identification features of them is the pattern on their pronotum. So a lot of them have yellow, a lot of them have white. And it's that pattern that's one of the key ID features on some species. Because surprisingly, the pattern on the elytra, those what we call the wings, is really, really variable within every species. And there are a lot of lady beetles that are named for the number of spots on their back, like 10-spotted lady beetle, and there's a 12-spotted, there's a 13-spotted, there's a 14-spotted, there's a 20-spotted, there's a 22-spotted. But even within those species, there are a lot of individuals that have a different number of spots than the name that was given to them. I really like the pattern on this crane fly's wings. Good question for Stuart Tingley. What was that? We call crane flies mosquito hawks. Yeah, these crane flies do not feed on mosquitoes for sure. And I've heard them called mosquito hawks before too. I'm not sure how that name got started. This is pretty big compared to that lady beetle, for example, but this is actually a pretty small crane fly. It can be about three times larger than this. I think the ones we had the first night that we streamed, we had a mating pair. They were huge. Okay, let's take a look on the side here. if you ever decide to give this a try, remember that there's always things hiding on the sides. Oh, here's a nice beetle. I've seen this one so many times. I think it's in a family called monkey beetles. It's actually green iridescence on the back, on the wings, on the elytra. There, if I move the camera out, sometimes I see more. It's kind of a green iridescence that can appear purple depending on the angle. There's a really nice moth on the screen of the iPad, but I'm the only one that can see it. It'll probably move. And these have kind of orangish, brownish legs as well. So I think they're in the family of beetles that are called monkey beetles. But I'll find out. Here's, I guess that's probably the same crane fly that's moved. And there's something different on the wall here. Kind of a carpet moth. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to have to look this one up. It's quite small. Seems like it could be a bit worn. Certain times of the summer, you, oh, what's this one? Sorry. This looks different. Or is it even a moth? Yeah, it is. Boy, that one's well camouflaged here on these old shingles. I've seen this one before, and I'm just not coming up with a name. I think the common name, the first part of the common name is fet, like a bird, the owl, an owlet, frigid owlet, but not positive. But I'll find out. Here's a pug with a bit of orange on it. There. Well, not orange, more of a brownish color. All right, back on the sheet. Here's a new one that's come in, and it's gone already. It's a click beetle again of some kind. One of the features that most click beetles have is if you look at the rear part of their pronotum, which is the part between the wings and the head, they're kind of sharply pointed on either side. If you look closely, you'll see that they're pointed on the corners. That's a good feature for click beetles. Oh, that one had kind of nice reddish elytra when it finally opened its wings. All right, what they did, well, what that one did is a good example. Well, the June bugs are doing it too. So they open those elytra, they just sort of put them off to the side, which allows them to unfurl their wings that are kind of folded up underneath the elytra. Good question there. Are there fireflies up here? Yes. It's a bit early yet. Have to get into the real warm days of July. Well, actually, we always associate here, we associate fireflies with Canada Day. And Canada Day is July 1st in Canada, just 4 days before your celebration in the US. So, in another couple of weeks, there will be some fireflies, and we have lots here in our field. New Jersey, hi Mary. New Jersey fireflies came out last week of June, usually. Well, maybe, no, I'm pretty sure we've always thought of fire Canada Day. You wouldn't think New Brunswick would be later than New Jersey, because we're worlds apart in terms of our climates. But we actually have, here's a Red Cross shield bug. We saw some of those the first night or two we were streaming. They're green with a kind of a broad reddish brown X on the back. So these are true bugs. They're not beetles. It's a totally different order. It's our Rove, R-O-V-E beetle. Again, lots of miscellaneous things that I can't even give you a guess. Here's a moth we haven't seen before. This one is I think this one is in the genus Ancyllis. I think we saw this 10 days ago on our stream. The genus Ancyllis, A-N-C-Y-L-I-S. It's back again. So I think it's called Goodell's Ancyllis. Ancyllis, yeah, that's it. And if you want to make a note, Goodell's is named after Mr. or Mrs. Goodell, G-O-O-D-E-L-L. There's something different. Here's a caddisfly. Some kind of a caddisfly. Not sure if we saw this one earlier or not. Goodell's Ancyllis. Yep. That's it. Look at the antenna on this wasp here. Tiny wasp. Really neat antenna. Here it is. It's got an ovipositor too on the end of the abdomen, which in wasps usually indicates it's a female. If they have an ovipositor, it's for depositing eggs into a substrate of some kind. This thing is tiny. It's I'll put the nail on my index finger is 13 millimeters wide. I don't know if he's going to let me put my finger there or not. Anyway, it's about 8. I would say it's about 8 millimeters long, maybe 7. Powdered big wing, rosy maple moth here beside us. Oh, where'd it go? Was a rosy maple moth climbing the light. Excuse me. There it is. See the big yellow abdomen, furry abdomen. There's another species of a claris micro moth of some kind. There's a leaf hopper, the green one, a little green fellow. That's another species of moth. I don't know what that one is, but looks familiar. That looks like good elves that we just looked at. Here's this gray spring moth or early spring moth that we looked at earlier. It's all white except for a brownish wash on the underside of the wings. I think this is a gray leaf roller again, just has his wings open a bit. And here's one of those early spring moth or gray spring moth, whatever their name is, with the wings folded up over the back. So you can see that brownish, kind of a brownish wash, almost a brownish streak on the underside of the forewing. These are really common at this time of the year. Who's this, I wonder? Gosh. It's a bug of some kind, like a plant bug, maybe in the genus Lygus, Lygus. Sorry about the lighting. Oh, here's a elegant prominent. Wow. Oh, here's the first yellow-collared skate moth of the year. Sorry. Oh my God! It's a sphinx moth that just came in. Look at this beauty. I think it's a blinded sphinx. Wow, these things are just awesome. If you get the light just right, this species, it looks like it's glowing, like glowing embers or something. I'm not sure I can get that effect. I'm pretty sure this one is called blinded sphinx moth, but subject to confirmation once I get to some reference. So you can see quite large, but actually just only a medium-sized moth for a sphinx moth. Let me try a different angle here from the other side of the light. Here's rosy maple. Oh, here's another new one too. What is this one? This one is, I think this is called the black zigzag moth. It's a midge that landed beside this black zigzag moth. Well, here's a brother moth. This one's called the brother. And we'll get back to our original target, the blinded sphinx. I've got a light right in my eyes here. And I'm going to turn it off and see what happens. Oh. So I don't really need that light, except it attracts the moths. Wow, these things are so cool. Shall we take a peek, see what the underside of what the underwing looks like? Sometimes they'll allow us to take a little peek. I don't know why it's so dark. I'll turn the light back on. I don't want to disturb it if we're not going to be able to see what's under there. There, we got better light now. Try this wing here. See, there's an eye spot there on the hind wing. And if it's blinded, I think it has a black line through the middle of the eye spot. Sorry. I don't want to disturb it anymore. I'm sure we've seen enough to put a name to it. I'm quite sure it's blinded sphinx. Here's our Apodamus alveolana, or alveola, that we saw earlier. Wow. Let's see. Here's a brother moth. I don't know if it's the same one or not. I think it's a different one. I see the other one over there. The great blue heron was just calling. I don't know if anyone heard that. Oh. Had a June bug get up underneath my glasses, between my glasses and my eyeball. Oh, here's something different. This is called a pale alder, pale alder moth. It's the first time we've seen this one on the stream. pale alder moth. Yep, that's it. This is Tacparia, T-A-C, Paria, P-A-R-I-A. Here's a beautiful flame-shouldered dart. Tacparia, that's it, Ginger, great. Caddisfly, some all dark species that we saw earlier. Wow, there was a beautiful, elegant prominent here for a few seconds a while ago. And I was hoping it would be back, but I don't see it right now. Here's something new. I think this is the Joker. This one, it's actually kind of a pale green, black and white, and where to go? Don't see it on the sheet anywhere. Maybe it's on me or on the iPad. Anyway, we'll be able to take a screen grab and get a positive ID, but I'm pretty sure it's the Joker. The Joker moth. This is a brother moth. When you see a moth shivering like this, it usually indicates they're preparing to fly away and just getting warmed up enough to fly. It's still a pretty mild evening. Maybe it's down to the low 60s. Like, I think it was 18 or 19 degrees Celsius when I came out. This is a carpet moth, sharp angled. Sharp angled carpet moth. Here's a new moth for us tonight. The one on the sheet is some species of Ancillus, and that's an Eclaris moth there on the light fixture. Some kind of an Eclaris. I think we saw this one earlier. Here's our little weevil. Same one we saw earlier. A tiny, tiny moth of some kind here. Carpet moth just walked across. Well, I'll take another run around the sheet here. Oh, here's a new one. This is it's in the genus Pero, P-E-R-O. And I think it's Morrison's Pero. We have two species here. Honest Pero, I think there's one Honesteria, and the other one is Morrisoni, called Morrison's Pero. I think this is Morrison's. Actually a beautiful moth. The light isn't helping a lot, and my shaking doesn't help much either. Oh, here's a furcula. It's probably a modest furcula. If we can just get it to stop flapping. This fellow here. sometimes it helps if you just don't shine the light on them. They'll settle down. That's a new one for the stream and new one for the year. It's actually curling up my jacket right now. Now it's in my right hand. Pretty sure this is modest. Furcula. Furcula, F-U-R-C-U-L-A, which is the genus Furcula, and the species is modesta. The common name is modest Furcula. You got it, Ginger. Great. This is like having a speech to text app on my iPad. Oh, here's the Joker again. Oh, come on, settle down. Here's the Joker, pale green background color with some nice black markings. Oh. That's some kind of an ancillus moth, similar to the one we saw earlier. I think this one's called black-backed ancillus. Here's our Joker again. Didn't want to settle down. There's some kind of ichneumon wasp. Many species of ichneumons. So curled up here, in the lower left there is a nice leafhopper, pale spring moth, flame-shouldered darts, two of them, one facing us, one side on. Some kind of a micro moth up there, I don't know the name. That's an eclaris moth in the corner there on the light fixture. And a Coleophora moth, the pale one with the long antenna sticking straight out in front. And another micro moth, that's a Coleophora there as well. Here's a pug, some kind of a pug moth. All the pugs are in the genus Epitheca, or Epitheca, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. E-P-I-T-H-E-C-A. And a type of carpet moth in the genus Hydriomena. Hydriomena, H-Y-D-R-I-O, Mena, M-E-N-A, Hydriomena. It's the genus. And we have a few species that are similar. Not sure which this one is. Ooh. Our blinded, this is the white-banded toothed carpet moth. White-banded toothed carpet moth. Common, pretty common spring species. Our blinded sphinx is still hanging out here. The Joker came into the picture for a second. There's our Morrison's Parrow once again. Here's a little cloud that we've seen a few times before. The common name is little cloud. It's in the genus Ancylus. Let's see if there's anything else new here. This is a gray-banded leaf roller. I'm not sure if we saw one of these tonight or not. I know we saw gray leaf rollers, but this is called a gray-banded leaf roller. Powdered bigwing. Just checking some of the shingles. And we'll go check over here. There's our rosy maple moth, still in the same place. Powdered bigwing again. This is in the genus Eucosma. It's a micro moth that we haven't seen tonight. I think we saw it last night. Eucosma, E-U-C-O-S-M-A. I think this is a species that's called beautiful Eucosma. I don't remember the scientific name. Powdered bigwing, June bugs. Who's under the June bug here? That's a different beetle. Not sure. Don't have enough for some reason. Well, I guess, oh, here's a Niprophorus beetle. This is, yeah, look at this species, and most in the genus always carry a lot of mites on their backs. If you look closely, you'll see them running around on the back. So these beetles feed on carrion, and I guess the mites are able to feed at the same time and then crawl back on the beetle to get carried to the next corpse. I love these guys, but they have this bad habit of, they have a chemical defense. If they feel threatened, they can give off a terrible smell. I mean, it is putrid. Only lasts for 30 seconds at the most, but often I know there's one around long before I see it, just by the smell. Sometimes they give it off when they're just flying by me. It's kind of creepy to see all those mites running around on their backs, but at the same time, it's really neat, I think. All this stuff used to creep me out so much, and now it just fascinates me. It's funny how our view of things change as we age, as we learn. Look at them crawling all over the back, all over the wings. Anybody creeped out by that? Well, Ginger enjoys it anyway. That's great, Ginger. I just see new messages. I see them for a few seconds when they pop up. Mary enjoys it too. Great. It's a ground beetle again that we looked at earlier. Has some purple and green iridescence on it, orangish legs. You know, I was just thinking, I bet if I put something dark on one side of the field of view, that would force the camera to lighten things up, and it might make the beetles a lot more obvious. Just checking my pockets here to see what I could use. Nothing. Let me try just holding the power bank up to see, for example, if it makes a difference with this beetle. Kind of subtle, I guess. I held a Madagascar hissing cockroach for my birthday. Wow. I've heard of those before, but I can't even picture what they look like. It was on your bucket list. It was so scary, but I did it, and I have pics. Good for you, Mary. JB, Chloe, you weren't freaked out by that? Creeped out? Good. There's that monkey beetle we saw earlier. Has green iridescence on the elytra. Sometimes looks purplish, especially in the center. And that's again a white banded toothed carpet moth. And there's a neat little moth. The ones that have long front legs, so they hold their bodies up at 45 degrees to the whatever they're standing on. They're in the genus Calop. I had trouble with this last time too. Caloptera or Caloptilla, I think. Got a nice yellow marking along the side. Probably could be identified to species, but not with my brain right now without something to look at. Oh, here's our three-lined balsa we saw a few nights ago. Three-lined balsa moth. The species feeds on apple, the caterpillars do. You know, most moths, or a lot of moths, are named for the appearance of their caterpillars. So sometimes you'll see these really bizarre names. You look at the moth and you think, why on earth did they call it that? Like, white-horned or something like that, It's because a lot of moths were named by the appearance of their caterpillars. And most moths spend most of their lives in the caterpillar stage, or a good part of their lives in the caterpillar stage. And what we call moths, the ones that fly around, are only around briefly, just some species just a few days, very few days, others a few weeks. But most of the research that's done on moths is done on the damage that the caterpillars cause to various commercial crops. Here's Morrison's Perro again up here. It's kind of like dragonflies. When we say dragonflies, we think of these beautiful four-winged, huge insects flying around, but that's a very brief part of their life cycle. And really the only function of the adult stage of most dragonflies is to reproduce. And they spend much more of their lives as nymphs living in the water. Okay, well, I think one last look here along the edge. So earlier or not, I don't see any mites on this one, so it could be a different individual. Sometimes I still flinch a little bit. I get a June bug going down my neck, but I recover quickly. Now here's another Nicophorus up here. Wow. This one's got a few mites on the back, on the elytra, near the top of the elytra. See 3 on each side. It's actually Nicophorus, N-I-C-R-O. Isn't that beautiful, Mary? Kind of bizarre tips to the antenna, and kind of fuzzy tips that are orange. Nicophorus, yep, that's it. Just a quick look. Make sure there's nothing new sitting here. Well, there it is, of course. This is a variable carpet moth on top. Those black crescents out near the wingtips are a good field mark for that species. Variable carpet moth. And of course the other one's our friend, the early spring moth or gray spring moth. All right, it's time to wrap it up. I don't want to see everything tonight, otherwise there'd be no point in streaming for the rest of the summer. But I haven't even scratched the surface yet, trust me. These are our black zigzag. So I don't know if we're back or not, but I just wanted to say good night to everyone. It's been 75 minutes we've been streaming now. Good night, Alyssa. Good night, Dan number 2. Ginger, thanks ever so much for trying to make sense of my babbling. Thanks for joining us, Mary. Really appreciate it. Enjoyed your company. Jay and Chloe, thanks so much for being here too. Really kind of you. Hope you enjoyed it, and I plan to do many more streams in the coming. Hope I didn't forget anyone here. Okay, have a great remainder of your day or night, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.